Welcome to the UK Travel Planning Podcast. Your host is the founder of the UK Travel Planning website, Tracy Collins. In this podcast, Tracy shares destination guides, travel tips, and itinerary ideas, as well as interviews with a variety of guests who share their knowledge and experience of UK travel to help you plan your perfect UK vacation. Join us as we explore the UK from cosmopolitan cities to quaint villages, from historic castles to beautiful islands, and from the picturesque countryside to seaside towns.
Hi, and welcome to episode 56 of the UK Travel Planner podcast. This week, I am really happy to have guest Kathryn Johnson on the podcast to talk about her trip to the UK in May. And I was lucky enough to meet up with Kathryn in London, which was fantastic, and her family. And so Kathryn agreed to come on to the podcast. We did do a previous recording of this. I'm going to be totally transparent. And unfortunately, the sound was not great. I think at the time there was hurricane warnings for you, Kathryn. Is that right?
Tornado warnings.
Tornado,
yep.
That's it. Tornado warnings. Yeah, so unfortunately the sound was a bit iffy, so we're doing it again. But it's always a pleasure to talk to Kathryn. We did an itinerary consult for you guys last year, and we get on so well. So it's always amazing to chat to you. And you're also in our Facebook group, which is fantastic. So Kathryn, without me kind of hogging the show, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of tell us where in the States you're from and who you went on the trip with?
We are, as you mentioned, a family from Chicago. We're outside Chicago in the suburbs, and we went 2 weeks in May, my husband, my adult daughter, and myself. And I do think our trip had huge success because of the consultation we did with you and Doug. We felt very organized.
Thank you. And I know you say you're very organized anyway, so it was lovely when somebody said that they're so organized that we were able to help you even more.
Because you know it inside and out, and that was our first trip to the UK. So it was hugely helpful.
And I know it was a very important trip for you because it's somewhere that you've dreamt of going for a long, long time.
Since I was 7.
I know. And so it was everything that you dreamt of?
It was perfect, honestly. And I keep telling people, how did we get 2 whole weeks in the UK without any bad weather?
I know.
It was sunshine every day, and I can't believe it.
You were so lucky. I mean, the weather was amazing. I only flew back at the beginning of July, and I think the weather's not been as great, actually. But I know May and June were amazing. It was really warm and hardly any rain. I don't think you had any rain at all.
No, we did not. We saw a little bit of a drizzle, like maybe 5 minutes of raindrops, while we were sitting on a bus in Scotland. So other than that, that was it. It was fantastic.
So give us a quick, a kind of brief overview of where you went when you were there.
In London, we did all the basic big tourism things, but we took your advice and did not only stay in London because we were there for 2 weeks. So we would do about every other day, we would do a trip out to the country or to another part of England, which was wonderful because England is so much more than just a big city. And then we did take the train up to Scotland, where we stayed for 3 nights. And that was, again, I'm in love with Scotland now. So
you have to go back and see a bit more.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you got a good little taster there when you went up to Scotland.
That's exactly what it was. I feel like we got a perfect, it was like almost like a charcuterie board of England, where we got a little bit of the best stuff, and it makes me want to go back for the full meal now, is what I want.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. And I think that's, doing exactly what you did, spending some time in London, but also getting out is really important. And I do say that to people. I love London. I enjoy visiting London, but, there's so much more to the UK than London. And getting out of London as well gives you a bit of respite from the city and the busyness as well, and gets you to see some of the countryside.
And it was also good for our steps, getting our steps in. We got a little bit of a break. We'd sit on a train for an hour, and it was great. We needed it physically. We needed that downtime.
Oh, no, absolutely. So you've already mentioned kind of, we had the itinerary consult. So are there any other resources that you found really helpful for planning your trip?
Your Facebook group was hugely helpful, and the website, obviously. And then the podcast, we kind of did it all. And then I was thinking about this, believe it or not, my daughter kept sending me TikToks.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, we have to go here. We have to try this. I need to see a Highland cow. So TikTok, and then you guys basically was everything.
Maybe UK travel planning needs to be on TikTok.
Oh my gosh, it is a whole other. It can be used for good, but it's a lot. But
finding the time is always the issue, I think, with it. But no, so that's great, and we kind of aim to give as many resources as we can, and we're hoping to get some YouTube videos on. Again, it's just finding time, but I love that you use the Facebook group and the website, and obviously listen to the podcast.
Podcasts are wonderful, very helpful, and they were a good variety of topics. Like you can look about trains or about the Highlands or about the countryside and the Cotswolds. It was wonderful.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we're continuing to develop. There's going to be lots more. I'm planning the podcast out for the next few months. So there'll be lots of trip reports and also some tips from different places like Edinburgh and Bath we've got planned, and a lot more. So it's... we try to put the variety there so that we can meet lots of different interests, because obviously it depends where you're going to visit. So I'm going to ask you, because I know this was a favourite part of your trip. So I'm going to interject with yes. I know you took some private tours with some of our partners.
Loved them.
Victoria and John, particularly, yes. Huge shout out to those. So would you like to just chat about those particular
yes.
tours that you took?
So we went to the Cotswolds with Victoria. We took the train. It was so easy because she told us exactly what train to get on, what time, what station. She met us there, comfy car. She had bottled water, and it was very, very easy to get along with her. And the thing I appreciated a lot about her is she spent time getting to know what we wanted to do, but also what we wanted to get out of the day. Instead of just a itinerary from us, I said, we wanted to experience this and experience that. And then she filled in with the details because she knows the area.
Absolutely.
I don't, obviously. So that was great. She gave us a taste, an overview of the Cotswolds.
And she's amazing. She's such a lovely, lovely person. And yeah, the Cotswolds it's a large area. So to try and...
It's huge.
Kind of do, we often get people say, I want to go to the Cotswolds. I want to do the Cotswolds in a day. And it's like, well, that's impossible to do the entire
Correct.
Cotswolds. But I think doing it the way that you did was the perfect way to do it, in that you spoke to Victoria and she was able to work out the best itinerary that would meet your taste and interest.
She was very easy to communicate with. And the other part too is it was kind of uncertain how it was going to be getting in someone else's car and spending an entire day with them. But she, along with John, who we also did a tour with him, beyond easy to talk to, easy conversation. It flowed well. She asked the appropriate amount of questions of us. It just felt like we were with an old friend. It was wonderful. It was very relaxing.
Brilliant. Well, I was lucky as well to spend a day with Victoria, and with Doug and I spent the day with Victoria and had a wonderful time. Again, I spent the day with John in May, and
we loved him too.
It was one of the highlights of my entire trip, spending that. I mean, obviously, I love Victoria, so highlight that obviously spending
yes.
time with Victoria as well, because she's so wonderful. But I went with John to Hever Castle, which is somewhere I'd always wanted to go to.
Yes.
And I just had the best day. It was just, the weather was amazing. John was amazing. He knows so many people at the different...
Yes,
we went
he
to
does.
Iton Moat and Hever Castle, introduced us to people. It was just like brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
They were both people I would, in a heartbeat, return to do a day with them. No questions asked. I have told so many friends about them, and I'm like, if you go there, you have to talk to these. And I know you have a lot of affiliates that you work with. Those are just the two I happen to know.
Yeah. And so what did you do with John?
With John, we went to Arundel Castle, and I picked it strictly on the looks of the place. I knew nothing about it. We ended up absolutely loving our day. My daughter said it was the most castle-y castle we visited in the whole trip. And my husband loved spending the day with another dude, I think.
Yeah.
And we talked the whole way home just about things that had nothing to do with specifically the castle, because we did all the castle things at the castle. The drive home, we talked about the government and how do house taxes work, and just cars and importing things and finances, and like, what day did your garbage get taken out?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, the rubbish bin. It was so interesting to hear about just normal everyday life.
And you know what? I always think that's such a privilege when you go anywhere, that you get to meet somebody who lives in that destination. And that's truly kind of immersing yourself in a place and, discovering what it's like for somebody who lives there, who's, that's their life.
That's completely what it was. A full immersive experience that was completely educational from the historic end part.
Yeah.
Where he told us all about the castle and walked us around and he knew like everyone who worked there.
Yes.
He's clearly has done homework and has built relationships, and that benefited us. But then just getting the everyday life that I find fascinating it's a different culture. We're all English speaking, but it is a different culture.
Absolutely. And being able to, that's why I say it's being able to ask those questions and finding out about those details that, you're not going to do if you go on a larger group tour. You're just not going to get that with the guide.
Correct.
You just can't. So that's kind of the privilege of being able to take one of those private tours. And that's why I highly recommend to people, if that's what, if you're going to go and this is a trip of a lifetime, book with these guys, because it will really make a difference. It will make the holiday for you, really.
I thoroughly agree. And we have talked about returning in a couple years. And the family agreed. We're rebooking. We're going to spend another day with both of them because it was worth every single penny.
Oh, that's perfect. So I know I'm also going to mention another tour. Mainly, it's one that I also did in London with Walks Tours, which was the Ceremony of the Keys. And I know you also took that tour, and I've talked about it on a number of podcasts. And to be honest, it takes a lot to impress me. I've traveled all around the world. I've done lots and lots of tours. I've done lots of stuff. I love all the Walks Tours. I like that the small group. But this tour in particular, for me, I don't know. It kind of touched my heart. I don't know. I think I'm British, and just being able to experience the Ceremony of the Keys with that VIP tour was just something amazing.
It was a very almost majestic feeling, but also a very almost sacred feeling ceremony. And for Americans, I would liken it to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier that we have in Arlington Cemetery in Washington, D.C. Just a very reverential ceremony, but not boring, and so packed with history and such deep meaning in all the details of the tour. We loved the one-on-one time with the yeoman warder. We loved being inside the tower without anybody else there. And we loved we had like VIP status. Like we stood closer to everything. We stood on another side of the street from the people that I think got like the $5 tickets that they release that you have to wake up at 3 a.m. to buy if you're in America. It was a very, I would say almost sacred. I don't want to overuse that word, but I do feel like it was that kind of ceremony.
I felt it was such a privilege to spend the time with yeoman warder as well. I mean, I've been to the Tower of London, I don't know how many times, but being able to spend that time with Matt, who was our yeoman warder on the tour, for him to explain and tell us about the history of different places and the tales that he told. And we were very lucky that he had the keys to the chapel. So we spent I would say half an hour in the chapel, which was something I'd really wanted to do on other visits. But it's always so busy, you just can't get the chance to do that. So that was fantastic. And I think you had, did you have the Raven Master on yours?
We did.
Yeah.
Chris? Is
yes,
his name?
Yes.
We had him. And so we found out even more about the Ravens that was just more generically covered in a daytime tour. So he told us, he's like, look up there. He told us where to look for the one raven that they couldn't catch. Yeah. And it was just great hearing the details and hearing the story about in the tower, they had a special toilet for Hitler because they were hoping to catch him during World War II.
Yes.
I also had no clue that Sir Isaac Newton lived at the Tower of London. These are details I just never knew.
Exactly. There's
and
so many things
from him.
Yeah, so many things you learn about that you didn't know.
Yes.
So that's amazing. Yeah.
As a side note, you can also take amazing photos at dusk.
Yes.
Because the tower bridges lit up. Holy cow, I got some good
and you're
pictures.
the only people in there. That was the other thing that just kind of blew my mind. Is like there was just him and then 14 of us and wandering around. I've never been to the Tower of London where there's not been hundreds of people, thousands of people there. I've done the opening ceremony and you get that time alone then to watch that ceremony. But then as soon as the doors open, it's just full.
It's full of thousands of people.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know those were three highlights for you.
Loved them.
We'll talk a little bit more about your highlights, but I'm just going to ask you how you got around when you were kind of traveling. Obviously, because you were in London, you went out to do some tours, obviously with John and Victoria.
Yes. And
you went up to Scotland. So I think you took the train?
We took the train. We took the overground train. We took only a handful of times did we take a cab, but mostly we used the tube. It was incredibly easy to use, and the people that work in the stations were so helpful. And the best thing we did was pick up a little pocket size, almost like a directory of all the tube lines, so we could follow along and get to know the system. And the app that we used, City Mapper, you recommended that. There's very little cell service when you're inside the tube stations, but somehow City Mapper still works. And every single stop, it would tell you, get off at the next stop. And then it tells you exactly which staircase to take or where to go for the next portion of your traveling. So the tube was so easy to use.
Oh, it is.
We'd tap in and tap out with our credit card, and it was simple.
Excellent, excellent. And then tell me about your train ride up to Edinburgh.
Oh, that was beautiful. That was so nice. We chose, I just made a comment about this in your Facebook group. We chose to do first class because that was a splurge we decided to make. And it wasn't that much more expensive. It really wasn't that much pricier. And we just got a nice, comfy chair at a table, and the views are spectacular. Just spectacular. It looks like something out of a movie with, the seaside and the sheep and the grass, and I took so many pictures out of a moving train window.
It's lovely. I've done that journey so many times, and I'm originally from Northumberland. And we always say Doug smiles now because so many people in the group, and we hear it so often, people will say, oh yes, you need to sit on the right-hand side. And Doug says that all the time. And it's like,
yes.
I'm like, and that's the thing. If you sit on the right-hand side in the direction of travel from London up to Edinburgh, you get fantastic views of the Northumberland coastline.
Because you told us to. Yeah. And I'm so glad you told us to. And also I was able to try something called a flapjack.
Oh, yes.
On the train. They said, do you want a flapjack? I was like, well, in America, that's a pancake. I'm assuming you're not offering me a pancake for a snack. So I said yes, because I just wanted to know what it was. It ended up being a sweet treat, and it was good.
Yeah. Oh, good. So is it a hot pancake in America then?
Yeah, it's a hot pancake.
Okay. So that's interesting. So how would you describe a British flapjack? How would you compare it?
A British flapjack is like a dense Rice Krispie treat that has some dried fruit in it.
Yeah, and it's very tasty.
That's how I would describe it.
Very tasty with a cup of tea.
with my hot coffee.
Kind of put you on the spot there. We have got a couple of, actually talking about other podcasts. If people, if you guys are listening and you're interested to find out about British food, we have got another podcast about British food, and we've also got a podcast about traveling from London to Edinburgh as well, that Doug and I did, about how to make the best of that trip. So I will link to those episodes in the show notes as well. So let's talk about accommodation.
Yes.
I know you had a little bit of a disaster in London.
I've stayed at a lot of places because we've traveled a lot. We had a few issues personally with 2 different Airbnbs that we rented, and we found ourselves 10 days before arrival with no place to stay. So we ended up finally taking your advice, and we looked into apart hotels in London. We ended up staying in the most fantastic place that we loved. It was across the street from a tube station. It was convenient. It had air conditioning, and it was bigger than a hotel room, and it also had a washing machine and dryer. Well, a washing machine and dryer, that's one compartment, which I didn't know it was going to be one thing.
We're going to talk about that, aren't we, in a podcast to come?
I learned. But it ended up being fantastic. We loved where we stayed. And then when we were in Scotland, we stayed at an old hotel right across the street from the Waverley train station. Yeah. And that was lovely. And they gave us a beautiful room overlooking the old town. What's south? Newtown.
Newtown?
Well, it's all so old. It all seemed old to me.
Opposite Waverley. It depends on which direction you were going, I guess. But Waverley's in the new town.
We were looking at the castle.
Okay. I don't know. We'll have to look at a map and figure out where that hotel was. But it's kind of where the station is. If you kind of walk directly out of the station, and you've got kind of Scott Monument on the left, that's Newtown. Behind you, going up the Royal Mile, and the castle's at Old Town.
Okay. So we stayed in Newtown.
Yeah.
In a very old historic hotel, looking at Newtown, I guess.
Oh, well, it sounds perfect. And I will link, I'll get the names of the accommodation as well, so we can put links into the show notes as well if anybody's interested in booking those. So we've talked about some of your favourite places and favourite experiences. So we've talked about 3 different tours. What else are that kind of standouts for you?
I think what stood out to us was also not only the ceremony of the keys, but eating at the Brixton Prison. Which ended up being a very unique experience, completely safe. We never ever once felt like we were in danger, because you are going into a working prison to have some of the best food of our whole trip. I wish we could have taken pictures, because you're not allowed to have your phone or your camera or even a smartwatch. You can't have anything. But everything is locked up very safe. You go through airport type security to get in. And the whole program that they have is something I am so supportive of and so in favor of. And it was called the Clink at Brixton. Phenomenal food. Had Yorkshire pudding there with my Sunday roast dinner.
So I'm going to have to definitely find out more about this, because this is something that I've not experienced before. So it's something that I'm definitely going to add into my future itinerary, and I'm sure they'll be interested in this, because quite often people will ask us as well about different experiences that you can have, particularly in London, when people have been, if you visited 3-4 times, you might be looking for something different. So I think having that as a different experience, and again, it's something different that you can do, and it's also supporting a very important program as well, as you say.
A very good program that's been around for over 10 years, and they've had great success. So it's nothing new that you're trying out. It's established, and I recommend it. I highly recommend it.
That's good. Now we'll definitely add that in. And other things that you can recommend?
Okay, tea. We went to tea. I have to talk about tea. When we were in Bath, we went to Sally Lunn's.
Yeah.
Because you told us about the Sally Lunn's bun.
Yeah.
So we went there and had, when we first arrived in Bath, that was our breakfast.
Yeah.
And it was amazing and phenomenal. And we came home with like the Sally Lunn proprietary tea blend, because that was our favorite. But then in London, we decided to splurge, and it was a planned splurge. It wasn't a last-minute splurge. We had tea at a place called Sketch, which was super bougie and super wonderful. And I understand now why everybody Instagrams this location. And you have to go. You need to go.
And you see, what you can't see if you're listening to this podcast is my face, which is very sad, because Kathryn invited me to join them at Sketch. And unfortunately, on that day, I had something else scheduled, which then got cancelled.
I was so sad when I heard that.
But I'm so glad that you had an amazing time there. It does look beautiful, because it used to be pink and now it's yellow.
I think, though, ambiance adds to it. But it was also the impeccable service, the amazing food. And I did tell my husband, he's an accountant, so he counts every penny. And I just said 2 things. You absolutely cannot make any comment about the cost of this while we're there. And you can't complain about any of the food, because he's kind of a burger and hot dog kind of guy, not a tea kind of guy. They had so many options of food. And if you like something, they kept bringing it to you. So it was an all you could eat, all you could drink. We left there so full. We had to bring our Victoria sponge cake home in a box.
I met you afterwards, didn't I?
Yes, and that was wonderful. Then we walked around the flower show in Chelsea.
Yes.
It was wonderful. Went to Harrods. That was great.
Oh, it was busy though. It was busy. It was
so
hot.
busy.
I remember that. It was busy and it was hot. But the Chelsea Flower Show, all the exhibitions in the shops was fabulous.
Beautiful.
I'll put some photos in the show notes of that because that was lovely, and we had a lovely kind of stroll around, didn't we? So
it was so great to meet you and put a face to a name.
I know, it's so nice. I feel like old friends, honestly, Kathryn. I feel like I've known you forever. It's like funny how you just click with some people, don't you?
Yes. Well, you're very easy to get along with.
Thank you. I'm just going to also just say, if you're listening about Sally Lunn's, I'm going to highly recommend. I don't know what you had on your Sally Lunn's bun, but lemon curd is my favourite. And
we didn't have that. We had a breakfast one, so we had like a bacon and cheese and some syrup, and it was so good.
Because you can have savoury or sweet. I've been there for even a meal as well and had the savoury. But I took my mum a few weeks ago because it was her birthday, and we went to Sally Lunn's as always, and we shared a lemon curd one, which was lovely, and a cup of tea.
It was delicious, and it really felt like something out of a movie. And if anyone goes there, they have to go to the basement because that's where they have a tiny little gift shop, but also the original oven that I believe is almost 1,000 years old. It's so ridiculously old. No, because they unearthed it like back from the Roman days.
Oh, okay.
It really is.
Been down there, I can't remember.
It's very old.
I'll have a look on the website. I'll have a look. Yes. I did go down and actually talk to the lady that worked in the shop. Not this time when I was back because I was with my mum, but when I was there last year. And I always go to Sally Lunn. It's just somewhere that it's just a lovely place to go. We went this time and there was lots of Americans there, so I think it's very...
They must be listening to your podcast.
I hope so. So what other foods did you like, since we're chatting about food?
We had delicious bangers and mash in Camden Town.
Yep.
We went up there. That was wonderful. You also recommended, or I saw you there on social media, and then I asked you a bunch of questions. We went to Pick and Cheese.
Oh, yes.
That was in Seven Dials.
Yes. Covent Garden.
I would have never have thought that cheese would have been like one of the best things. They would pair the cheese with a sweet or a savory. Oh my goodness. The Gouda with a little bit of a handmade salted caramel. Oh, it was so good.
Isn't it delicious?
My daughter occasionally still talks about it. Weeks later, it's like, remember that.
So
it was so good.
Doug absolutely loves to go there, and so when he was over, we didn't get time to go. So I've kind of didn't tell him that I went twice when I was back, but
it was so good.
It's so good, and I like to have a little glass of port with my cheese, and just And
you can get a grilled cheese sandwich, so it can be like a meal, which my husband loved.
Yeah, no, it's
that was a good thing.
It's a good one. I remember when I shared that, you were like, "Oh no, I'm definitely going to go there." So really
and we did.
That you enjoyed it. So I was looking at my fridge today, which sounds like a weird sentence, but it's full of fridge magnets, and all our fridge magnets that we bought in the UK are on the one fridge that we have, the main fridge. So what did you buy when you were in the UK?
Okay, I bought two things that I love. I bought Windsor Castle gin because it's made with it's infused with raspberries that are actually grown in the gardens at Windsor Castle, and based on the label, I wanted to buy that. So I did buy that, and I'm so happy. I traveled to the UK with those liquid travel bags that are padded and you can put your alcohol in it. And then also in Scotland, I really wanted to get some Harris tweed because I know that's been made in Scotland for well over 100 years or longer. It's been quite some time, hundreds of years, I think. So I got a backpack with some real authentic Harris tweed, and I was very careful to look to make sure that it was made locally, not like shipped
imported.
in from somewhere else. The other thing I did that ended up being a great souvenir is I would purchase a lot of postcards from the places we went, but I wouldn't buy postcards that replicated the view that I could take in my own picture. I would try to get an aerial view or maybe a view of something that you couldn't get close to. And a lot of places, like Windsor Castle, the Jane Austen home in Chawton, even, Tower of London, Scotland, a bunch of places had very specific location stamps that had like St. Paul's Cathedral on the stamp. And we would send a postcard home to ourselves. And I would have my husband and my daughter write a line, or we would say something on the postcard like, best thing I ate today was cheese. I'm still struggling with a 24-hour clock, or things like that, like just our own little memories.
Yeah.
And it just last week, we got another postcard in the mail.
Oh, it's
it's been fun to get those.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I just think I'm going to New Zealand next month for a month. Aren't I lucky? I'm very excited.
Ooh, nice.
So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that's it, because I've never thought about doing it, and I just love it. And it, like I say, you've been back a while, and the postcards are still coming.
Yes. My sister-in-law texted me. She just got one that we sent her from Scotland.
Oh, that's lovely.
I was like, well, that took a while, but at least you got it. And it's
a bit worrying about how long it took by the postal system.
I don't think the problem is on your end. I think it's on our end. I'll be honest.
I don't know. Honestly, in Australia, we might wait for about 2 years to get a postcard. Honestly, it's not the fastest in Queensland, I have to tell you. But okay, so that's really good. So you've got some fast. Have you cracked open any of the gin yet?
I haven't. I'm actually waiting for my son and daughter-in-law to come in.
Ah, okay.
We have some plans.
Okay, that's
to enjoy. I did open the whiskey.
Yeah.
I bought some whiskey. I will say this. Here's a tip I read. I believe someone in your Facebook group made a comment. They said, ask about alcohol before you buy it. Make sure it's not exported to America, because I'm not going to buy alcohol overseas, come home and find I could buy it here.
Yeah, exactly.
So all the alcohol, they have little mini bottles of whiskey that I bought for my family. It's only sold where we purchased it. Like the Edinburgh Castle, it's only sold there. So that was a great tip I got from your group.
That's really good. And I did buy, when I was over, I did buy lots of little miniature gins, because lots of the different places now, they do all sorts of gins. So you can, I don't know, different places that I was at, and gorgeous bottles as well, beautiful bottles.
Yes,
so I did buy a few bits and pieces, of little bottles of gin, which Doug brought some back for me because he came back before I did, and so my daughter got some, so she was very happy with those.
It makes a very happy gift for many people.
Absolutely. So, is there anything else you can think about that you want to share about your trip, Kathryn, before kind of?
I would say a couple random little things. One of the best tours we did was the Verger tour at Westminster Abbey, which is something that doesn't seem heavily advertised, but when you're there and you purchase your ticket, or you purchase your ticket in advance and you get in with your QR code, I went to the table and I asked, or the check-in desk, and I asked if we could buy a Verger tour. Yeah. So it's called. I think it's £10 per person, and it's worth every penny. We got to go into places that the public didn't get to go into when they're listening to their headphones.
Oh, yes.
So it was a personally led tour by somebody who's an employee of Westminster Abbey. And that was a great, really good tour. The other thing I started doing is I would ask employees. I did this at Tower of London. I did this at Westminster. I even did it at Buckingham. And I also did it at Windsor. I would ask the employees, what should I not miss when I'm here? What do people tend to skip over? And we got some fantastic answers.
That's a great
because
tip.
they know their attraction inside and out.
Absolutely.
And you can't cover everything. You just can't cover everything in the time allotted, because I probably need 6 months minimum to come back.
I know. Well, I've spent 3 months last year, 3 months this year, and most of the rest of my life, and there's still places that I'm going to.
There's
still haven't
always
done that.
Something to learn.
Absolutely.
There's always something to see. I'm so fascinated.
Absolutely. Well, it's good because then you'll be planning to visit again and again.
We actually are. Yeah. We actually are.
Just really exciting. So if, just to kind of sign off from this episode, but I know we are going to be doing another podcast soon. But this one about your trip, what would be the one tip that you would give to anybody visiting the UK for the first time?
I would say, don't overpack. We packed what we thought we needed, and then we pared it down from there. You will want to come home with souvenirs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we only brought what we couldn't replace, like medications or our glasses. Beyond that, like buy shampoo and buy even a toothbrush, toothpaste, cotton pads, whatever you need, you can buy that in the UK. And then we used it and we threw it away before we came home because I wasn't going to travel and pay to bring my little bit of toothpaste back to the States. So
Exactly.
I would
Good idea.
just don't overpack. And what you should pack is comfy footwear.
Oh, 100%.
Don't break in footwear in London. Bring comfy footwear and function over fashion.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
No one looked at my feet.
Nope.
And I wore what I needed to wear to be comfortable and not get blisters.
Yeah.
And I got over any fashion faux pas real quick because I was comfortable.
Absolutely, 100%. You've got to be 100% comfortable. Really, nobody really cares. It's pretty laid back.
We saw everything over there. The range was very wide. So just be appropriate for the occasion. But beyond that,
yeah, if you're going to get the Ritz afternoon tea, do check what you need to wear. Because
we did each bring one nice outfit. Everything else was mix and match.
Yeah,
like everything matched everything else. And we rotated, I think, through 5 T-shirts on the whole trip. T-shirts, like tops, like nicer, We were very careful not to wear like big logos and names of things because that just looks more casual and we wanted to not stick out.
Yeah.
As tourists, I'm sure we did, but we were hoping to not.
I think the accent might give it away slightly.
Yes. As soon as I opened my mouth, they're like, yeah, you. Actually, the first time I was in a coffee shop and someone asked me how I was doing, and I said, "Oh, I'm doing great. How are you?" And the man looked at me like I had 3 heads. I don't think he was looking for an actual answer. I think it was more of or how you do.
You probably get you okay.
You okay? That's what he said.
Quite often, and I found that actually when I moved to Australia, that was really interesting because I just go, "Are you okay? You okay? You're right. You're right. You okay?"
It was you okay? You're right. I'm like, I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah. And it's
I got a blank stare.
It's a casual greeting. You're right. You okay? It's more just a hello. So
it's
you
not
don't
meant
need to
actually
respond.
answer. Well, I answered one time, and then I shut up.
It's okay, but that's a common one. That you're right. You're right. I think is particularly. I don't say it as much now. I've got the habit in Australia because people kind of looked at me and went, "Yeah, why do I not look very well?"
Right. Is something wrong with me? Do I have something on my face?
No, you look fine. It's just I'm English and we say that. Oh, I don't want to say that anymore.
Well, I made the mistake of answering.
Oh, it's all right. I'm sure when I go over to America, and I've been a few times, I'm sure there'll be times when I'll have answered things inappropriately or said the wrong thing.
Sure,
but, it's one of those things. And it's one of those things, isn't it? We were talking about earlier. It's like you go to a new culture and, we speak the same language. We all speak English, American English, accented English, me from the north, Australian English, whatever. But, it's still a different culture.
It's a very different culture.
Way of living and different traditions and different foods and different, the British, we're just brilliant at queuing.
Yes.
It always fascinates me. I go out other places and it's kind of like a free for all, and then you're in the UK and it's like if you don't queue and you don't queue properly and line up, I know it's the American word, you will get side eye. You will get people looking at you kind of like, and you might get somebody challenging you. Chances probably not being English, but you will get the looks.
I will say, brilliant at queuing. You are correct. Nobody does the little chit-chat thing. No one talks with each other in line. And in America, by the time you get to the front of the line, you're best friends with the person behind you. Yeah, that did not happen as much.
No, not as much. We tend to be a bit more reserved. But anyway, we're kind of going on to the next podcast because Kathryn is going to be joining me. So in last week's podcast, episode 55, I did a bit of a kind of UK versus US to prepare US visitors, really, but also wherever you're from, for some of the differences that you can expect. So Kathryn and I are going to be in a future episode to talk a little bit more about kind of these cultural differences, the things that may have taken Kathryn a little bit by surprise or you weren't expecting. And obviously some of those things I don't even think about because I've grown up in that culture. So they're not even things that I consider. So I did obviously do the podcast episode 55. This is episode 56 and chat a little bit about those things. But Kathryn and I are going to be on soon to chat a little bit further, aren't we?
Yes, I can't wait because we're all speaking the same language, but the cultures you said are different. And I loved exploring those differences. I loved immersing into the British culture. It was beautiful.
And I'm going to love chatting further with you about all of those. But for this is episode 56 of the UK Travel Plan podcast. I'm going to say thank you very much, Kathryn, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for helping make our trip as beautiful as it was, because you and Doug in the itinerary consult was the best kickoff to our trip.
Oh, thank you so much. Again, thank you so much, Kathryn, for coming on. So you can find all the details of everywhere and all the places and the tours and the hotels that Kathryn talked about in this episode at the show notes at uktravelplanning.com/episode 56. You can pop over and join our Facebook group. You can book an itinerary consult. We have got a limited availability. I'm going to be very upfront about that because we are going to be traveling again. But we are putting some, hopefully by the time this episode comes out, will still be some appointments available. But do pop over so if that's something that you're interested in, or even shoot us over an email if it's something you really, really want to try and fit in. Otherwise, you can support our work by, sponsoring the podcast, which a lot of people do, including Kathryn, do. So thank you very much for that, Kathryn. We huge shout out to our sponsors. Everything helps us to continue to produce all of this free information to help you guys have the best UK vacation that you possibly can. So that just leaves me to say for this week's episode, happy UK travel planning.